Hey, it's Joe West from the West Barn with
Mike Shimshack.
And we're here with the one and only Rob Cureton, bassist extraordinaire. He's with us from Nashville, at a suburb of Nashville. And he is in is this your studio we're seeing here?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So we have Rob on. Me and Mike, after the last podcast, we talked to John Rich. We talked about you a little bit on that podcast. And we were thinking, oh man, wouldn't it be cool to have Rob on? And next thing you know, Rob shows up on my phone. I was like, man, Mike must have called him or something.
No.
For those of you who don't know Rob, he's an extraordinary bass player, man. And he's one of those guys that when he's playing the bass, you know who it is. So that's a really unique feature to have as a player, that you can have that big of a signature on your sound. He's toured with Colt Ford, Big and Rich, Kid Rock, James Otto, Yellow Wolf, Eminem, Indy Ari, Travis Tritt, CeCe Winans, a whole gamut of folks either toured or recorded with him. And he's here to talk with us today. And while we're a music podcast, we really, everybody's kind of reeling with what's happening in the world. It seems like such a crazy time with COVID right into the riots. And we thought, man, me and Mike were saying, do you know of any black session musicians that are at the tip top of that field? Do you know anybody who's working hard in Nashville that's a black dude that you hire to come into the session? And I said, I don't think I know anyone. And I've since called a couple session musicians that are leading session musicians and asked them, and their answer was kind of the same. No. And I don't know why that is. And I thought, man, I don't understand what's going on, but I understand that there's a dialogue that's like, I have a lot of strong feelings, but I know other people have strong feelings. So I figured, man, let's get Rob on, see if he'd be willing to talk about that. When I called him, what did you say? You said absolutely. So
yeah, man. My feelings, to just kind of step in a little bit and touch on a little bit of all that. My feelings, they vary day to day, because as a musician, but then as you grow, you learn how to produce music, and you call who you feel comfortable with when you're doing something as intimate as making a record. I get that aspect of it. But then there's another aspect of, like, just if you are doing 5 to 10 sessions a week and you don't see anyone that can add it's like cooking, it's like adding spice, man. Music is much so like food, and if you cook with the same ingredients all the time, you're going to get the same, you're going to get the same meal. And a lot of guys that I record with are just kind of over it. And I'm like, you get in the room and you just kind of hear the side talk, and they're like, oh man, another 1, 6, 2, 5, or another 4, 5, 6, and they're just burned on it. And I'm like, I have a number of feelings about it. I don't want to ramble, but I have a number of feelings.
Go on.
I think it's like proximity of where you live and who you're around. And, I know that my race takes up a very smaller percentage of the grand scheme of especially musicians. So,
but there's it's not up for debate that there's a problem. It's not up for debate, because Rob and I have worked together extensively. Rob's one of my favorite musicians I've ever encountered in my entire life. That instrument is a complete extension of who he is as a person, which is that next level of musicianship that he speaks through his instrument, which is very, very, very rare. And he is as good, if not better, than the first call people I've worked with outside of Rob. So there's a problem.
Yeah, I guess it's like you look at the total of the numbers and you say, why? How do you explain the lack of black session musicians in Nashville? And you can come to a bunch of conclusions about that, but the fact is that we don't know any. And some of the session musicians I talked to said, yeah, Nashville is racist. The scene is racist.
I mean, it's tough to say that because of how sensitive everybody is to certain terms, but I mean, among my group of black friends that are just, that we can to assimilate into a culture that was if you just do the history, you find out a lot. And they want to, I hate using that term because it generalizes, but I can speak from my experience is that it's really hard. It's because a lot of it as a Black musician, I'm spent making when I do get those calls, I'm making sure that a part of me is allocated to making the people in I'm in the room with comfortable. And as being the only guy with brown eyes, a lot of the only brown eyes in a room full of blue eyes, man, it kind of, I've just always, as a musician, you taught to be aware at an early age when you're jamming, man. You got to be knowing who's in the room, who's around you, what's going on. So, to keep it moving forward, I think what's wonderful about what's happening now is that now we can just know that it's something that needs to be addressed. There are guys that are qualified. Drummers, man, Myron Howe, like, that is playing with Jake Owen, but this dude is, like, bar none, one of the absolute best drummers I've ever played with. One of my favorites. But he don't even play on Jake's records, and it's like it falls a lot on the artist, but I know the management has a look that they want to try to protect, and it just gets sticky, man. But I think Dave Matthews Band is a perfect example of what we can all achieve through uniting together, man. And Nashville I don't know if it's like an intimidation thing. I've been in a room with guys that I've really looked up to that will be kind of weird because they'll think I'm coming from some place where like, man, you Black church, man. No, you just play with a bunch of killing players. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not what we doing. Like, I know how to, if we're all in this room, you got to trust the producer. You got to trust everyone that's here. It's like, yo, this is the sound that I need.
Which is funny because obviously I know you very well. And you're one of the biggest pop fans I know.
Oh, boy.
You love pop music. You love hooks. You love hit songs.
Melody.
So to lump you into this like gospel-y thing is without knowing you is completely crazy because you love a hook more than anybody I know.
Music is just a beautiful thing, man. Popular music, pop is just what everybody vibes on, man. And unfortunately, it gets grouped as synthetic, but pop is just like what everybody's digging, man. That's why the genres kind of complicate everything because it's like, oh, it's this, it's that, and it's like, man, the Eagles was pop, but Michael Jackson was pop too because just everybody was digging on it, man.
Yeah. So how do you explain? It's like it seems like it's super ambiguous. It's like everybody, and you don't realize it. Like whenever you're in a room with me and 5 other guys, there's a dynamic of what I think is happening in the room, and there's a dynamic that each of those 5 people have, that they feel insecure, or they feel like there's this oddness between people that maybe I'm not even feeling. Are there any times where you just felt overtly that it was because of your race that you either lost a gig or you didn't get an opportunity? Is there something that comes to mind?
What I don't know doesn't hurt me, but at the same time, I will tell you about my experience working this is when I was touring with John and Kenny, Big and Rich. And the guys took a hiatus, and during that time, John had produced a record for Jewel, Pieces of Me, I believe it was called. Well, everybody in the band, after they had kind of, was set up, everybody got a gig. Except for me. They all went over to Jewel, Larry, Jeff. Wow. I think Adam only turned and maybe did it for a little bit, but Adam Schoenfeld is like the guy who's one of my shout outs to Shoei. I love him, who took a chance on me, back in 2007 when I just met him at Guitar Center. John recommended me for the gig. He heard me playing, and we hit it off. And Adam was the band leader and just gave me the package of music, and we hit it off and been friends ever since. What I don't know doesn't hurt me, but man, I can't lie. That did upset me because that was when Luke Bryan was really growing. I was playing country music in 2007 right before a lot of the guys that are really doing it now. Al Dean, I remember, man, me, Jason, I would see Jason all the time. All these cats that are just killing the game. Jake, when he was just starting out, you know, because Big and Rich was doing it. 06, we talking 06, 05, and I started touring with them in March of 07. Shout out to Ethan, he stepped down and they needed a bass player. And it was strictly because John, I'll tell you how I got the gig. It wasn't because they were having auditions, they were already set up. And of course I didn't get who was I in the world of Nashville at the time. But I was working with Stacy Mitchhart 4 or 5 nights a week, one of the hardest working blues artists that I know of, man. And them cats are doing it 5, 6, 10 nights a week, okay? So I cut my teeth with them around town. And so I kind of bypassed the Broadway scene, but John would come in there into Bourbon Street. Everybody would come in there. I met Brian May, who just gave me love when he heard me playing from Queen. I mean, these stories that I have of like people just coming into Bourbon Street. That night, John Rich was one of them. And we hit it off, man. He got it. He was like, you have a very interesting way of playing bass. And that was he was like, I just love it, man. It's like you kind of play a lot. What he said to me, he said, you kind of play a lot. And this was like 15 years ago, but you do it in all the right places. I'm just not, it doesn't upset me. And he gave me his number. And that was when Kelly Pickler just won The Voice, or with the show that she was on. He said, I want you to play with Kelly, you know. And so I just called him randomly. That's what I do to people. I call them throughout the week on an off, like 10:30, 11. I'm giving away my secret. But if we have a connection in any kind of way, I'm going to call. And I called John, dude. I called him on Nolensville Road. I was just driving down where I'm going to do it. My heart was pounding. And he said, perfect timing, just like when you did when I called you. He said, man, bass player just let me know he's having back surgery. He's not going to go. But John, you know, man, when I read the things about John, the kind of switch an aside, I smile because I know it's hard. We all have different faces to some degree. And I've spent time with John Rich that I will cherish. So what the public knows, I know we all have to, I don't want to use the word pander, but we all have to cater to the people and we have to cater to our roots to some degree, even if we don't, as a black man, don't understand what those roots may be or can't even sympathize with those roots, because I'm coming from it with a different perspective. But at the same time, from him being from Texas and me being from Detroit, you know, what we came together in a common field was the music. You know, it transcended age. It transcended everything that could have possibly made him feel any way about hiring a black dude. Once he saw what was true, which is vibration, sound, and frequency, you dig? That's what cuts through. And so I just hope that through this podcast, right quick, that people that are watching will just know, man, look at the algorithms, man, of your sessions. Like, just get some color in there. It won't hurt. There's, you know, I get it. Yeah, we're dealing with work ethic, and some of my brothers have work ethics that are not up to par because maybe they're just not used to being put in positions. But I also know lots of musicians like Marcus Finney and Hubert. These dudes not only they're just professional at the highest level of professional. Why aren't they doing more country gigs and stuff like that? Why aren't these top producers calling?
Do you think?
And maybe they are, but I'm just speaking from my experience.
Do you think that if you were in Los Angeles or New York, that you ever think like, oh man, I should have gone there. There would have been more runway for me?
You know what? I did go to New York, man. I went to New York, and this is before like Corey Henry and all them cats really blew up the way they have in the last 7 years or so, 5 years. Snarky Puppy, man. I was up. Once Big and Rich stopped, I was just kind of burned on Nashville. So I moved to New York. My friend Ron Gilmore, who is now done amazing things in the music industry with J. Cole, he left Nashville because he was burned on not getting called either. Who's like very qualified and was doing a lot of stuff. But I did move to New York, and I got in with Ryan Grant and friends down at the Village Underground. You know, I went, and after months of sitting in, I kind of know the pecking order, and there's a whole nother dynamic with musicians where you got to kind of like learn how to approach people, you know. And so I met my good friend Tony Stevenson, who's like bass royalty in New York in regards to like the scene, and was in the 70s and 80s, really kind of like setting the bar for what we as younger bass players this generation doing now. But Ron finally, after weeks of me coming around and just showing my face, he finally let me sit in. And through that, man, that's, if you could play on Sunday night and become part of that family with Nathaniel Townsley, man, and all, I mean, dude, the cats that would come through there on Sunday night, Kim Nicky, who was like second runner up on The Voice with Meg Lindsay, but she's killing the game in New York. Sasha Allen. I worked with Rob Lewis, who was doing Diddy's Making the Band that, at the time, that was on MTV, who was like Christina Aguilera's MD. He does a lot of the pop stuff, and through just projecting what I wanted to do, I said, I'm going to New York. Moved up to New York. I loved it. I just couldn't get with the chaoticness of, I grew up in the South. I'm from Detroit, but the space that's in the South, once I kind of got in and started feeling like I was one of them, they had accepted me as a stepchild from the South, you know, I just didn't want to do it with the traveling and the amount of people that was in that metropolitan area. And my health was really starting to tax on me because of the trauma, man, I was experiencing with, that I didn't realize, with just living in fear. As a musician, and I'll kind of get something we can all kind of meet on with commonality, is like scared about money, scared about just doing this thing. Like, what if I'm not as good as, what if I'm not really good? So with that, it just, and then dealing with the racial kind of hum that we're supposed to be past it, but there's still like a whole understanding that is just understood, you know, among whites and blacks in society, that is like, we kind of are always on guard. And I didn't realize how on guard I always was until I started reading more books, and like, oh man, and then started learning outside of my identity of just being a musician. Once I started identifying with what it was to be human and started tapping into my humanity and learning about what to be African American, and started studying history like Andrew Jackson, and learning about what was going on in America 150, 200 years ago, I started getting a better picture of why my people, and I say why I feel like my people are distressed and angry and just going through a lot. And there's a lot of backlash because there's been a lot of inequality in the respect alone. I mean, just look at the footage. I'm not going to say here or that. Go back and look at the footage. Look at what your own newspapers are writing. Read what, you know, go back and read the articles. That's what you do, study. You know, if you want to see where we're at, what's going on, I really encourage you all to pick up a Bible, really, and read it for yourself, and read it unbiasedly, and read what the people were going through in the desert, why they were just traveling around, and really understand what it means to, when you drift away from the source, from the true power. And we've drifted far away, I believe, as a humanity, because of the things that we've done to the earth, the things that we've just done. And for self-preservation, we've just depleted all the balance in order to preserve nothing, you know? And most of the people that believe in American rights are the ones that love hunting and fishing, but they want to make fun of people that want to do something that's like, hey, let's get rid of the plastic straws, you know? It's like, I've gotten into arguments with people on tours that are like, man, they're changing our American values. And I'm like, do you realize at the rate that we as Americans consume, the way we are just so driven by our fleshly desires, there will be nothing left. I can't believe that the society we're still very racist in a world where, like, the air is effed up, bro. The water's effed up. Everything is just effed up. But I have to look at the beauty in it. But if you're going by what the news is telling us to feel, everything is jacked up.
Yeah.
Music is the least of it.
You said something really interesting, and I've felt this. I was telling my wife that when I was coming up as a kid, I was in Pittsburgh just learning how to be an audio engineer at the studio, and some guys came in from the University of Pittsburgh, funded through an arts program, two dudes from Nigeria, and no, they were from Kenya. And man, I hit it off with these guys like I'd known them my whole life. But I feel a total divide, polarization, the pressure cooker of our current climate. And this is going back with every black relationship, bar a couple, where I just feel like when I'm in a room with a black person, there is a wall that I'll never be accepted by them. And I can only imagine what they're thinking about me. You know, it's almost like you can't get close enough to see people for what you had said, like when you get to know them as human beings and you get past the classification of them. And then you say, man, I love that person and it doesn't matter anything. But I feel like there's such a divide in our culture that we can't even crack the shells of each other to be able to get to that soft center where you can get to know somebody and vouch for them because you love them. Do you sense that?
Yeah, you know, I see how that can be. I honestly, man, God has been really, he's just really kept me, man, in positions where I was really down. I'll answer that question as I was really down about 5 years ago in a real bad state, 2013. I just been diagnosed with end-stage renal failure, and I just felt that my life was just, and there was no money, and there was just, this was post Big and Rich, and this was when Big and Rich had #1, right? So it's like, what do you do after you toured as really we were 4 buses strong, 4 semis. So what do you do? I was in a bad place, and my wife, she told me my gift. She told me that my particular gift is like that bottle of wine that you can't necessarily, you don't open it every day, but when it's right, you know that it's time to get it. And shortly after she told me that, my friend Mike Hicks called me up to record on the album. Yellow Wolf was here recording in town, and they didn't have any, they didn't want Nashville. They wanted to record in Nashville, but they just they wanted something different. So I answered that question. Yeah, there's a divide there, but I think that because when I come into the room, it's about the music. And I don't know if it's my ability to just want people to feel comfortable, and by being completely transparent. Hey, I had a tough morning this. How was your morning this? I'd like to talk about commonalities, like, hey man, it was real tough this morning for me. What's going on in your life? What did you eat? Hey man, are you working? Like, health is important to me. You know, man, I try not to focus on like things like the weather. And I like to just be honest with my own struggles and I think it makes the music better. Yeah. You know, the relationship that like me and like I have with Mike, and the relationship with even cats like Keith Thomas and guys like Paul Worley. These are guys that when they call, I'm like, oh shit. But at the same time, I've studied enough to feel confident in who I am as a person, to meet with these guys, to respect their accomplishments, but to know that we're all human. We're all human. We all pooped this morning. That, you know what I'm saying? We all woke up and put our feet on the ground. And what's the goal, man? What's the goal? We're like a bunch of surgeons in a room. And so when it comes to that, I like to work with the people. I like to have a understanding with the people I'm working with, but it's definitely a two-way street. And I like to get it popping by just being honest, you know, for the most part. And you can feel it. You can feel when people are kind of vibing that way.
In the sessions we've been in, I haven't felt any of it. Like, because music becomes this other universal language that we all speak. Sure. You know, yeah. I even noticed that with John Rich on the podcast that we just had recently. You know, politically, I'm so far away from where he's at politically, you know, right. But as the moment we started talking about music, it all melted away. And I was like, all right, cool. Now we're speaking a language that we both understand.
That's true. Yeah.
You know, like that's really how it felt to me. You know,
some people got to learn to navigate the waters. And he was somebody I really like. You know, it's just like learn how to navigate the waters. Keep the main thing. We out there to tour, man. You know, we out there to tell them, say, hell, you know, tear the roof off. That's what we would do, man. The problem is outside of the sessions. Who are you hanging out with? Who's on your economic level? To who are you going to play golf with?
Sure.
Who are you eating with? Who are you inviting?
That's a big, you know, I've had some conversations with other musicians in town, and that is one of the things that seems to trip people up. You know, if they have a family that they're close to or kids or whatever, and they don't go do the social circle with everybody, they suffer.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess that's part of it, but you know, but also, you know, if you're not invited,
man, there's always cool stuff going on, and I'm like, I would feel slighted, you know, but what's for me is for me, man. I don't get angry, you know. I'm human, so I feel it. Everybody wants to be included and be liked and be loved, man. Barry Gordy, that was the name of his autobiography, To Be Loved. That is our plight. That is my plight, is to be loved, dude.
Yeah.
But
well, I don't know, man. You know, it's like
for me and what's not. I don't really.
I mean, you're on some other level too, spiritually too, which is, you know.
Hold on 1 second, guys. I got to let my cleaners in. They're like ringing my doorbell incessantly.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
All right.
That is a first world problem, man.
His house is dope too.
I know, man. You know, that's why I just through learning about myself, man, I know that I'm a connector, and I know that it is just people that have that ability that I identify with. We just got it's a chance for us to do our work. I've been reaching out to more people, you know, and I think through just having an intelligible conversation with people,
right?
You know, and just, you know, unfortunately, the sad thing is that to get it back to the black thing, and I think it's just the assimilation has been a bit traumatic for us because we've never really been accepted. You know, white people have.
Did you feel any of that up north?
You know, I grew up down here, but yeah, dude, I totally feel it.
Like
up
the time you lived in Brooklyn up there, when you were up in New York City, did you feel like more liberated? Because my experience, you know, as you know, I lived in Brooklyn for a long time. Nobody paid attention to anything.
Yeah, man.
Nobody gave a shit.
New York, bro. Yeah. You know, I really dug New York. I did feel liberated in a sense of everybody's trying to not get stuck up. Everybody's trying to be, you know, there was a commonality, and that felt like what I liked about New York is that everybody's kind of guarded, right? And they're all but they all are trying to, it's like worker bees, man, worker ants. There ain't really much time for space and
it's liberating.
It is liberating because ain't nobody worried about.
You feel like you could shave your head. You could, you know, do whatever, wear whatever you want to wear.
Nobody looks twice at you.
Yeah, there's a beauty in that. And it's very accepting. After September the 11th, you know, I was up there during 9/11, and it was really cool because you had this like month long in New York City where people were opening doors for you. And as New Yorkers, you're not ready for that. You know, like when I moved to Nashville, I'd be like, what does this guy want? You know, this guy opens his door to the bank ATM and I go in, I'm like, in New York, my mind's doing a lot of calculus. You know, it's like, how do I get out of here? You know, what does he want from me? Why did he say hello? You know, but in Nashville, they're just like asking you how your day is, and they really want to know how your day is. It's off-putting to a New Yorker.
So on a whole other side note, when you went up and played in New York at the Village Underground, did you feel like your experience in Nashville had prepared you to hang with these dudes?
You know what, my experience, I called my friend who has a Creative Soul Academy.
Yeah.
Bro, yeah, absolutely. But the great thing is about my Southern, my Nashville music experience is that I didn't have that jittery fast thing that a lot of New Yorkers have, like catching the cab. I wasn't in a hurry to prove how much I could play. What my goal was is to like make everybody feel like I just wanted them to feel that slow Southern, that
that's dope.
Man, and they thought, you know, man, especially I love New York drummers, man. New York drummers, they cold. They cold. They got gas, man. It's like, I don't know if it's weather, but they got some heat, man. Look at there's just some, I love playing with New York, with Northern drummers. I really do. But playing up there, man, yeah, bro. I definitely was, because the song selection, now it didn't get me really prepared me for the jazz that they were doing, but you know, that is a whole nother scene. And
right.
There's an R&B pop scene up there that's like really good. Yeah. Man, you talk about like, it's kind of some reverse racism going on, though, but we kind of got to be that way, though. You see where Miles and Chuck Berry and all them cats was doing to get on? A lot of that has bled over. The hate that you see, you know, a lot of us is guarded too, because we feel like, actually, if you do the history, jazz was black expression, bro. And really, it was called jazz because white people, Caucasians, thought it was jibber jabber. They was making fun of it. Jazz is actually a derogatory term, and they would call it Negro music. They was like, you know, they would just, and so that's why Miles be like, oh, Miles was a racist. And no, man, Miles and these cats, I really love listening to the jazz from the 30s, 40s, when they were really like playing for their life, man. Listen to Monk. Listen to those. Oh gosh, man, there's just you can hear them playing for respect. That's why the music is so good, because they were treated like animals outside of the stage. We're not even talking about the club, bro. It was not all good. It was, and we're at an okay, better place now. But you go back and start reading why those guys were so intense. There's a bit of like, I don't even know if reverse racism is a thing, because hate isn't something that I believe is instinctual to like African culture. If you study how they had their there's people that defected and they were dealt with within the village accordingly. But it wasn't like overall like this. There was more harmony than I believe in that. And so through trying to assimilate to American culture, that's where we try and communicate however we can. And that's what jazz really was. So you're hearing those guys playing for respect, and you're hearing a lot of those things. But to answer your question, yes. You know,
there's a story that I heard, and I probably won't get all the details right, of I want to say it was Sammy Davis Jr. in Vegas. They would not let him, you know, eat in the same room, different green rooms. And apparently Frank Sinatra stepped up and said, if you don't treat him like one of us, I'm out.
Yeah,
he was Frank Sinatra. I mean, I feel like we could really use somebody of that kind of stature to use their leverage. Like, and he literally, this is, you know, this is in the 50s and 60s. I mean, this is at the, you know, maybe, I mean, obviously, I don't know. I was going to say the peak, but seeing what we're seeing now, I don't know that was the peak. We might be at the peak, you know?
Yeah.
But anyways, regardless, it was a very unusual thing to do at the time. And Frank Sinatra had the juice and used it.
You know, the thing about music is that it does disarm people. So it's like, once you can we almost need some sort of national moment that's like music, right? So we can vouch for each other.
Absolutely.
So someone's willing to say, hey, if we're not in the same green room, then I'm not going to be in any green room. You know, you almost need to get.
That comes with humility. Who's willing? Because that's the problem.
Right.
I feel like I said the issue with everybody. That's humility. Who's willing to do that? You know who did do it though? Jesus did. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was always preaching about in the Word. He was just talking about being humble. And if we are humble, then yeah, man, we would be like making sure our brothers eat and, you know, making sure we're taking care of each other. Humility will answer that question. And for a lot of us, man, you know, stepping down off of our self created ego, stepping out of the super ego to just kind of
What do you think Nashville needs to, like, what's the Nashville you want to see? And do you think, I mean, I know that I'm dumping this on you in a question right now, and you just want to play bass. But what is it? What's a Nashville look like that's the right Nashville in regards to Music Row and getting access and welcoming all people that should have a voice?
The Nashville that I would like to see is where our musicians are taken better. In regards to our big economic drive is music. I don't know this to be factual, but I feel it. I mean, it's Music City, but we don't really take care of our musicians, man. And especially our African American, our Black musicians, man. Like, we have a union, but the union's not very happy with me. But we have a union, but it's like, what is the good old boys at the union? No shade to Dave Pomeroy, who's an amazing person. But it's like, what are they doing to make sure that these union cards is coming in? What are they doing to looking at the algorithms to see what is going on in these rooms? You know, like, dang, man, y'all processing all the big session cars that come through. Who is within the union that's advocating for just making sure Black musicians are getting a fair shot, or even making you want dues, you want all this, but what is it? How am I benefiting as a Black musician getting into these rooms without somebody vouching for me and really, like, you know, it's like all the Black guys get typecast. I don't want to say all, that's a terrible word, but me, I've been typecast as the funk. Oh man, you like, bro, I play everything. I'm actually classically trained. If you really want to know the truth, I started playing classical music in the 5th grade at Glencliff Elementary, and I understand the importance of a whole note, a half note, and a quarter note, which makes I understand music a little bit more differently. I can understand the phonetics, you know, just the foundation of why a group should breathe the way it should. But the next what I want to see is just, man, maybe the union I don't know what, I just don't know, man. I just want to see our musicians taken care of. I want to see more cats that look like me that are qualified to get these calls too, man. You know, I want to see more guys get these calls, you know. I would like to get more of these calls. I'm ready. I know when you should play the P bass, when you should play a jazz bass, when we should probably just use some, you know, it's like guys that study the music should be given a fair shot, you know. You guys are pretty powerful in the industry. I think it's amazing that we're even having this conversation, because I know when we get off here, man, I know you guys' wheels are spinning, and you guys are hanging out in rooms and hanging out in social and economic circles that I'm not quite in those rooms yet. But man, by you advocating and we having even conversations about this kind of stuff, and like, just know, man, when you hire when I'm in the room, I'm not judging. I'm not thinking, oh, this guy sucks. Oh, if you put out what you get, what you put out, and you're insecure about what you put out. If I feel like if your genuine intention and you come from a place of like just wanting to be the best at what you've been called to do, my goal is to be the best in the room. Not to be the best on the session, but just to be the nicest person, the most, like, I want to hear what everybody has to say. I don't want to be a know-it-all. But then once I leave, I want everybody to say, dude, that guy, who is that? I want to leave them with those experiences. And through working with cats like you and Mike and Keith Thomas, I've been able to play on a few records that through the relationship of how I even call you, say, Joe, what up? Through those moments of just feeling connected to you enough to call and say, hey, that's how it's relational. Tighten up your relationships, people. That's all we need to do. This is a call. We've been growing up in our pod, you know, especially us in a generation that grew up watching Leave It to Beaver and idolizing like this American dream. And the problem, the anger is a lot of white folks is being woken up from this American ideal of like, oh, there's the black milkman. Oh, it's like, no, those people have lives, and those people live in a part of town that's different from you, that have been like really economically and like intentionally put over there just so that you can have this idea of like normalcy that was never real. Go back to like the gold rush in the land buy, when black people were not given land from the U.S. government. When they were opening up the West, when they were done murdering all the Indians, sorry, that's the truth, look it up. When they were done clearing out the land and buying people off and giving people corn and sugar, getting them hooked on crack, that being the crack, the food and the sugar, there was land, millions upon millions of parcels of land available, that if you were not colonial, white, whatever the term is, you were not, and that is where it all started to really separate. Like, they're on top of the 400 years of like slavery and just being like boy and, oh, you're 3/5 a human. Like, come on, guys, you can't act like that wasn't a real reality. And what was yesterday? If you still, what was an hour ago? It doesn't matter if you haven't done anything to change your narrative in the moment. Call your black friends. You know what I'm saying? Reach out to people and just, we have to humble ourselves, myself included. Continue to humble yourselves. Get outside of your comfort zone. Dude, my heart was pounding before we took this call today, because forgive me for being all over the place, because I'm dealing with emotions that I've just pressed down in the name of like, well, this is survival. I've want out of the need to survive. It's like in a white culture, in country music that started on the plantation, that is, it's all that, it's trying to assimilate and to try and just look at how women are. They want to assimilate with makeup and hair, and like, we all just want to be this idea of what people have painted for us that is only making money off of the misconception of what beauty and harmony and peace really is.
Wow, dude.
That's cool.
That's some heavy shit.
And the misconceptions are people are angry, and people are, I'm really happy about what's happening. I'm not happy about the fact that there's a lot of tension, but like listening to jazz, man, what makes it bad is what makes it amazing and beautiful is all the accidentals. What makes is the tension, because the release is so amazing. That's what the bridge really does, man. You groove it, and then you get to a bridge, and you're like, oh, this is our bridge. This is humanity's bridge. We can really come back on the other side and have
for the release, man.
You say what?
For the release, man. Well, let's hope the outro chorus is the release, and everyone starts getting along, and like, I love that. That's an amazing analogy, man. I love that.
What I'm super frustrated about, Rob, and let me know what you think of this, is that I don't feel like every with the news cycle and what's happening, I feel like, okay, you have everyone's attention. I just wish we had something that we could say to one another that was actually productive. Like, rather than covering the daily riots, I feel like we aren't having any kind of like, there's no road out of here. There is no bridge to release the tension. So I'm wondering what that is. What do you think about that?
Man, I think the more the people with influence can do more, man. I tell you what my experience with Colt Ford, and I'll get kind of not really too personal, but Colt Ford is an amazing person. And if I didn't initially want to take the gig because of what I thought it was about, of what I thought his message was about, and what I thought the music was about, until I got out there with him and realized that, man, a lot of what Hollywood is it's drama. And if I can it's just drama, man. And if we get to the past the mask, hey buddy, if we get past the mask, we see who people are, get to the heart. Man, I go to dialysis clinic three times a week. There's no, man, when people are in there because of health, there's no room for bigotry and racism and that kind of thing, man. When we got cancers rampant, let's talk about what the real problem is. And the real problem is healthcare, man. You know, that's because we're dealing with food, and I'm a big advocate for taking care of your body, because I was 345 pounds, man. I'm down to 195, wow, and a lot of that, bro. I was a really unhealthy, sad, fearful. I lived my false identity as a musician, and part of the reason why I became so good was that that was my outlet to all the frustrations. I now that I a lot of it was cultural, you know, not feeling up to this interesting dynamic, man.
You feel like you had to be better, right?
I feel like I had to be better in order to not be looked at as just another black guy.
Sure.
That part of it, family stuff, you know, in regards to what slavery, you know, what it really did to the black family in America, though, man. Like, all the anger that you're seeing is because during that time, the family was completely discombobulated. And so the order in which the father's role, the mother's role, the balance for us as people, when I say us, is like Curtis Mayfield said, those who are darker than blue. To be black in assimilated white America because of the oppressive, what our fathers was going through Jim Crow, coming through, dealing with what was happening on the streets, and not feeling like, didn't have, you know, these nobody to look up to. You didn't have in Hollywood the cowboys. You didn't have nobody to make you feel like a man and that you were equal. That's why we perform, and our performers are great. But we didn't have, like, look at the movies from the, you know, when this was really being shaped. But what it did to the black mind is really being displayed now in the anger. I think that we're seeing, and people that just don't want to understand it, I don't know what to tell them, because you have to study the history unbiasedly, not the way you wanted it to look at, but the truth. And the truth is that black people, they were used in this country for economic growth. I know that to be true. It was either to work in the fields or to work up in the textiles up north. But that goes for anybody that wasn't in the room during the signing of the Declaration of Independence, huh? You know, you think about who was in the room. Those gentlemen were writing those rules with in mind their own. Not even the poor whites, man. Because the problem is, too, you got a lot of the poor whites that are angry, right? Well, we've been treated like, it's like, yeah, man, that's the great deception, too. They're turning all of us have-nots against each other. You know, there's a group of people that want to keep you ignorant and want to keep you misinformed and keep you confused in order to have control over your mind. And that's the real truth.
I think there's a good point in every argument. If you get old enough to learn how to argue, and I learned later in life how to argue, it's like you say that first part where you kind of like, you're hurt, so you're coming out with anger, right? So you're saying all the stuff that the way you felt that someone, but then there's a moment where if you learn how to argue, you could shift that and start to say, I hear what you're saying, right? Yeah. I understand. I could see how you would see it that way. You know, my wife and I, once we start talking like that, I'm disarmed. I'm immediately disarmed. I'm like, you understand what I'm saying? Well, I guess I can understand what you're saying. Music is a great tool to do that with in humanity. Like when you say you go into a session and you talk to people about yourself, I think that's genius, because now I have to give a shit about you.
Now we got, man. Hey, how was your morning, Joe?
Yeah.
But what I like about some of the bigger producers that really have done huge records that I've worked with, man, they make everybody feel comfortable in the room first, man. Yeah. Their number one priority is the product. I've been in rooms where people are so anal about the time, and I get it, but there are guys that have written some powerful songs. They make sure that that you feel important. And I picked up on that, and so I want to make everybody feel important.
That's genius.
I want to make everybody.
I think we're at the point in this conversation, like nationally, that we're screaming at each other still. And I can only hope there's a version of it. It's so frustrating because you don't see the bridge coming up, right? But I hope there's a version of it where people start to say, I hear you. I hear what you're saying. And yeah, I mean, there's certain things we don't know why. Is Nashville racist? I don't know. We don't, but we know this.
Look at the numbers.
Look at the numbers. We can't
look at the facts. We don't have to, because to say racist is an emotional, like it can be subjective. I think would be the word, like, because it depends on who's saying it. But you know what? Don't lie in regards to health, in regards to music, in regards to entertainment, is the numbers. Go find the numbers, and not go find the numbers that have been cooked. Go find go look, and actually what you have to do is get a number of different sources, because you got to see who's doing the data, who's looking at the research, who's getting the numbers. But look at the numbers, man.
We talk to each other, the three of us, and I've talked to two other session musicians, all of which have had 10 plus years in town. I'm going on 15, 16 years in town. And we couldn't collectively, there's no black dudes playing in that top echelon of session players in Nashville. And I just don't understand that. I don't understand how that can be.
Let's change it. What's my man? Let's just change it. I'm here. I don't, you know what? Like being married, bro. How many times have you just epically, we've been married, you know, bro, epically just F up. But what do you just keep wallowing in it? Do you ruminate in what you did, or do you just try and keep trying for positivity, keep trying for better? So if you producing these records, man, or these older cats, man, start getting some of these young brothers in here, man. Some of these cats that are just, you know, I get it, they want to keep their thunder, but if you set young cats, if you do I feel like if you are a sensei that learns to get you some pupils, get you some cats under you, and teach them how to, and that's where I kind of feel like I'm getting in my career, is like I want to teach more, because you get you pupils. I've had great sensei. My sensei is Reggie Wooten from the great Wooten brothers, man. I think that what Reggie understands about music and science, music being the mother science, music, that's what it phonetically is, the mother science, and how what he's just taught me over the years. I've had a number of amazing teachers, but senseis that are willing to share the art with the right pupils, man, you know, and invite these cats to your sessions, because I feel like everybody want to eat. Mm-hmm. A lot of the older cats are not willing to kind of give up that throne or whatever, but I think if you share a little bit, if you find yourself getting bitter, man, I got relationships with so many people in town, like number one songwriters that are killing the game, that have yet to call me for it, that I have like relationships for going on since the late 90s. Like, why don't you know I'm capable? Why haven't, like, not even a bone? Okay, so I just keep working at my own pace.
Yeah.
I keep working at my own pace. I just continue reaching out to people that I have a great rapport with, and just kind of keeping my energy and my spirits high, and knowing that through pressure makes diamonds. So I just have to keep reaching out and keep spreading light, man. Keep spreading light, keep being light, and it's hard to do that. And keep advocating, and keep being intelligent. Keep learning, because the more we know, the more we focus on learning about other cultures, appreciating other cultures, appreciate, because like everybody likes going to the beach to some degree. Everybody likes experiencing things that, like nature. Everybody to some degree loves some aspect of nature, and we all need it. You know, we're all human. That's what's just so amazing. Oh, somebody from Santa Monica, LA is calling me, and that's always a good thing. Sorry. When you see 310 on your phone, you're like, ha!
See, we're making a difference already.
Yeah, I think this is, man. I think that's the most important thing about this conversation. I'm not a public speaker, but I do. I appreciate and I love to adhere to knowledge and truth. That's how I want to walk in, bro.
Well, we appreciate you like coming out and having an honest conversation about it, because the one thing I've learned about Nashville is that they just don't talk about anything. They won't blow your phone up. They won't tell you why. They won't tell you why they're not hiring you.
No.
You just aren't getting hired. So I appreciate you coming on here and speaking honestly, and I mean, the numbers don't lie. There's something going on.
I mean, just, look at the numbers and really what has been printed to different degrees. Just look at the narrative, man. The narrative. Look at the narrative.
I can say this. I know we're getting close to wrapping up here, but I can say this with every degree of honesty and heart I have, is that there's very, very, very few musicians I've ever encountered that can change your record like Rob Cureton can. I mean, it's like it is. And Joe, I know you witnessed it.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable. And I worked with a lot of great musicians. Rob is at the very tippy top, man. Yeah. He's got the gift. And
yeah, I can vouch for that.
People are missing out by not hiring him.
You will enjoy your track for many years after he leaves the room, which is like the ultimate thing a session musician can leave, is a level of satisfaction. Me and Mike had written a song together that you played on, Rob, that was a development thing, and it was the only song that anybody gave a crap about out of this group that we were developing, and the bass is the whole reason why. I mean, it's incredible. It's part. I mean, it made the song.
But that's
and every time
song,
we play it,
even Rob playing the simplest of parts is magic to it. He just has it. It's the gift of a truly incredible musician.
That's what should really be the legacy and the driving force. It's like, choose excellence every time.
I mean, that's what it is, man. I absolutely. That's how I feel.
And you don't want someone to hire you to play bass on something that is half-ass and you're not showing up.
Just choose excellence, man. Quit, choose excellence. But then excellence is also subjective too.
Yeah, but it's undeniable.
Taste,
It's undeniable when it's there.
Yeah, man. Hey, I appreciate you, man. I really appreciate your kind words. That means a lot to me. I give glory to God for that, because I just want to be a conduit. I want to be a connector for people, because I just want to be a positive conduit bring us all together to a commonality, bring us all to zero. I haven't been perfect, but as I've walked through my health journey, I've learned what's really important. And I think through COVID, what's happening now, maybe a lot of us have found out what's really important. Let's just stay on to that, man. I know people have been saving more money. I hope people have been saving more money. I realized I was going to Sprout. Shout out to Sprout. Like, way too much, man. I was $5 and $10 myself to I'm looking up like, yo, we spending like $800 a month in Sprout. What's really happening? Down to going to Aldi's twice a week, and we're getting fruits and vegetables for about $75, and we're eating like royalty. So this time has been great. I love that this is being shaken up. Hey, Nashville, this Elia, man, all these cats, my boy Justin Tockett, that are just not Tockett, but who did Casey Musgrove's album. He plays all
Ian Fitchick.
Ian, bro, I go back with these kids. They call me Robbie. Not too many people call me Robbie, but these cats that are leading these sessions, they're my friends on a whole. Before we were able to do this on this level, and so Bobby Holland, who's killing it. Jaron Johnston. We were in high school. I was in a high school band with Jaron. Welcome Lane, who's written #1 hits. Yo, your little bro is out here, man. I'm here, man. I'm here, and I promise you, man, I'll play whatever you need.
Well, we'll put you.
I can be agreeable.
We're gonna.
I can know my part,
I'm gonna put all your contact info and your website down in the comments in the description so people can get a hold of you. And thanks for coming on, brother. We appreciate you. And
oh man, love everybody.
Thanks, Rob. Love you, brother. Thank you, man.
We'll see you soon from the West Barn. Thanks.
All right, bro.